few years ago, I did a video on a Grand Cherokee that had a thermal camera integrated into the grille and on the screen in front of the steering wheel. And I thought it was amazing. It really did a good job of letting you know if there's deer or animals on the side of the road, if there's any kind of pedestrians in the dark or in the fog. It also is able to recognize vehicles in the fog, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I did a full video on it, just kind of demonstrating what it does and what are the benefits of it. I looked into it. It's actually it's a Flir system, and it was several $1,000s, and it cost a bunch of money to install because it was just like basic components, and it had to integrate into the vehicle. And so I was really interested in it, but it just wasn't very practical to buy and put on just the regular car. It would be thousands of dollars to buy it, and then, I don't know how much, a lot of money to have somebody install it properly. And so, now a couple years have gone by, and I got contacted by Thermal Master, and they're releasing a new thermal imaging system that is compatible with any vehicle, and it works very well. Very interesting. It's very high quality feeling, and the software is amazing. And they designed it to where it's just so simple for the average person to connect the wires, install the little thermal imaging sensor, and start driving. And you're able to see on the screen, a fairly decent sized screen with good resolution, all these different views. It also has the ability to connect to your vehicle, so it can get your vehicle RPM, vehicle speed, if you want those type of things. But the main thing is, with this, is the price. It's a much cheaper price, and it's easier to install. You can install it yourself, really. So it's like a fraction of the cost of the Flir system, and you're able to install it yourself, or the average person would be able to install it. It's not very hard to install. So I think it's really well designed for the common person that wants to add a thermal imaging system to their vehicle. Now, if you're driving during the day most of the time, probably not going to be the best benefit. But if you're driving early in the morning or late at night or in the evening where it's foggy, if you get up in the morning and it's regularly foggy on the way to work, or if you drive during those time periods, this would help out a lot, because sometimes you can't see a vehicle in front of you until you're very close to it, especially if they forget to put their lights on or something like that, and it's really dense fog. You can't see cars, you can't see pedestrians, and you can't see deer, animals in the road. This system can see through the fog and see any kind of heat signatures in front of the vehicle and let you know if they're there, and it'll actually visually and give you a warning as well. So also at nighttime, of course, this is where it really shines. This is really what this type of system gets the greatest benefit, is at nighttime. You can see animals on the side of the road, once again, pedestrians, stuff like that. So nighttime fog, you get the absolute most benefit out of that, because your headlights, tend to just reflect the fog in front of you. Even with fog lights, you can only see so far down the road in front of you, and so really you have to really slow down because your visibility is extremely limited sometimes. But with the Flir system, or this particular system, Thermal Master, the Flir system was the same thing, but like I said, thousands of dollars plus probably $1,000 or more just to install it. This thing seems to work just as good, if not better, in a lot of ways, and you can install it easier. When you first start it up, you want to go into the settings and make sure you set it up the way you want. So you kind of tap on the screen here, click down here, and you can go into the different settings. You have general, display, alarm strategy, management, and help. So the first one is the brightness setup. So the auto brightness probably be a good idea for most people. I just went ahead and turned that off so I can adjust it for the video here. The alarm sensitivity, I don't want a lot of alarms, so I just brought it down a little bit. You can go to the display, which I'm surprised that the brightness setting isn't in display, it's in the general. So you have the GPS, which you can turn on or off here. As far as the display, we'll go ahead and turn it on. Highlight close distance pedestrian, so I turned that on. A lot of this was turned off at first. Pedestrian target frame display, want to turn that on. AI results display, image enhancements, infrared pseudo color. So I changed this. At first it was on white hot, and white hot looks like this. So this is fine, but I like to have the higher contrast basically. So we'll go back in here, and then we'll go change that. So you have white hot, black hot, so whatever's hot is going to be black instead of white, rainbow, primary colors, and then lava. So the hot will be like super red. But the rainbow has a lot of contrast and looks cool and kind of looks like a normal thermal imaging. You see my cup of coffee here. I set it there so you can see the different colors here. It's very sensitive. Thermal imaging, I mean, just like right here, I'll just put my hand right here on this corner of this box and then let go. You see already a little bit of a heat residual heat right there left. It fades quickly on this particular surface, but yeah, it's very sensitive. You can see residual heat. So something will look warmer, and it's just some residual heat where something's been turned on or touched or whatever. And so let's go back here to the settings. All right, so we can get a chance to change the color and everything. Let's go to the alarm strategy. So the alarm strategy will be what it's going to like an audio alert type thing. So you have vehicle alarm. So this would be like, let's say you're sitting at a stoplight and then the vehicle in front of you drives away or something like that. Or if you're getting too close, or, something like that, or maybe just different vehicles. But the animal alarm is what I'm concerned about. That's what I want. I want an actual alert. So I don't have to stare at the screen, So I'm driving along and I get an alert, then I can glance at the screen and see what the alert is about. Pedestrian alarm, forward vehicle. Now this is, so you can see the kilometers per hour here. All right, enter. Distance driving alert, forward vehicle start alert. That's the one I was talking about, like the vehicle in front of you takes off and then you're sitting there and you not paying attention, I guess. Starting distance alert. All right, and then you can go into management here. Apparently you can do updates. I'm not sure. I suppose an update will be on the SD card, something like that. And then help. So this one has like a little voice assistance. So it does have a voice recognition system, and these are the commands here. So you wake it up by saying this, and then you can say one of these commands here. All right, so let's try the full screen one. So we'll get out of here. Hi Max.
I'm here.
Full screen.
Full screen.
Hi Max.
I'm here.
Volume 70.
Volume 70.
I mounted it right here in the very center, and I probably would consider at least mounting it a little bit over the driver's seat. A little bit more over the driver's seat, whichever, like if you're in another country, you might want to have it on either side, but whatever the view of the driver is, that might be an option. Where it is in the center is fine. Now the Grand Cherokee that I drove had the thermal sensor in the grille where the driver was. So so this has a little bit of different view. Still good because you get to see this, the middle of the lane is focusing on your lane. And not so much the whole road, but you can see the sides of the road and everything. The main thing here is that when you install this, it has 3M sticky tape, and it is super strong. So what you want to do, it has a magnet on the underside. You want to put it in place and drive around at slow speeds because you don't want them, to fly off, because the magnet's not going to stay on at like 60 miles an hour, I don't think. I didn't try it anyway. But anyways, and test it and make sure you get the view that you want. Then clean the surface of your car, thoroughly clean the surface of your car, then apply, and maybe you want to put some painter's tape or something around it just to make sure that you know right where you're going to put it, and then apply it. And make sure this little wire right here is passing through the little weep hole there. And then you can run the wires here. These are little sticky tape things, so that way this wire can run into the door and not, flap in the breeze or whatever. So yeah, once it's applied, it is very strong. Yeah, that 3N tape that's underneath is extremely strong if you have a clean surface, which the rest of the car is filthy dirty. I've just been so busy, but I cleaned the surface, applied that, and so yeah, no problem going 60, 65 miles an hour, no problem. You hear a little bit of wind noise, not a big deal, but it is there. And then ran this wire here, and just for testing purposes, I just ran it just over here and plugged it in the cigarette lighter. And once again, for testing purposes, I mounted the little screen right here. Now, depending on the vehicle that you have, you may have to be creative on where you're going to mount it. Because if you have a Tesla, you can mount it right here on the steering column, because there's no gauge cluster here, so you're not blocking anything. Now, you can put it here, but it's going to block your gauge cluster, but you can fold it down. So it has the little attachment, is able to fold it down out of your way when you're not using it, and when you need to use it, you can flip it up, you know, that kind of thing. But having it to where it's just kind of in a fixed location, this is obviously temporary, you know, it's covering up my screen over here, but having it in a fixed location, having it somewhere where you can see it, but it's not like way down here where you're looking down at it or something. You want to make sure that you can see it in your peripheral vision, because it will give you visual alerts here, and sometimes audio alerts depending on the situation. So yeah, the installation, although it's easy to run the wires and to install the thermal imaging, it's a little bit, you have to be a little bit creative on where you're actually going to put the screen. And I like the little connector, the little mount that it has, because you can fold it down. So in this case, I can fold it down or pull it back up if I put it on the steering column, which is a good idea. So yeah, pretty straightforward as far as the wires and everything. Just make sure all the wires are connected tight. You know, they have to be very tight. You want to push them in, tighten them, push them in a little bit more, tighten them, and then make sure you get a good connection. And also keeps water out and stuff like that, especially on the one that connects to the one outside the vehicle. It's amazing how fast it's able to recognize and follow a moving vehicle. Even when it's coming in, as soon as it reaches the visible part of the camera, it's able to put a box around it and follow it. Now during the day, if you were to use the thermal mode, it doesn't really, I mean, you can see and everything, but there's nothing that really pops out. It has to really, you know, put a box around it. But the fusion mode right here, you notice how it's cropped in versus the visible light mode. This is like just a regular camera, and it has a wide angle view. But when it uses the thermal camera, it has a lower resolution, so it's basically a smaller box, which makes it look like it's zoomed in. It's just cropped, basically. And then it just fills the screen with that smaller crop. So it looks like it's zoomed in, which it is, you know, further in front of the vehicle than this view right here. This is like a really wide view. But to get that view, really the thermal imaging sensor is only going to cover a little bit of that visible view. So that fusion mode works well because when there is a pedestrian or an animal, then it highlights it in a color. So this is like a black and white mode. And then everything's pretty much irrelevant unless, you know, it has a little box around cars and stuff. But if there's an animal or a pedestrian, it'll pop out in color. So you can see the pedestrians are brighter than the background. So you can see the Flir system had just a yellow box, but it didn't actually show the thermal imaging of the pedestrian. It just showed a little yellow box around them. This actually shows the thermal imaging of the individual within the box of the pedestrian or the animal. So it's a little bit it catches your eye in a very similar way, but it kind of has a kind of a neater effect than the Flir system. And also there's some pedestrians in the distance. It has a fairly decent distance. It's like I could barely see that pedestrian up there because of the headlights on this car, but the camera was able to pick up their heat signature. There's actually looks like a potentially that might be a false alarm right there, but I can't really tell because those headlights are in the way. So yeah, blinding lights like this would definitely cause a problem with trying to see with the camera. Yeah, they're behind their door right there, but I can't really see at all because these headlights are actually on the high beams. So this is able to pick it up. It's able to avoid the glare. So yeah, that's being able to have those pedestrians popped out like that and see them very clearly, high contrast, very useful. This truck has very bright lights, so it makes it hard for me to see around that truck when it's shining in my eyes. But this will be able to see past all that and see pedestrians. So there's a pedestrian right there popping out, and it doesn't matter if my eyes are glared, if there's fog, if there's dark area, this will be able to see the heat signature. And this right now is in the fusion mode where it's overlapping the actual camera, the regular camera, and the thermal imaging, so that way I can see the lines on the road on here and everything. So if I were to go over here, you can see it's just the thermal imaging, so there's less detail, but it gives me all the colors and everything of the hot and cold signatures. But this one actually gives me more detail because it's overlapping with the actual just a regular camera. Black hot, confirm, get back out of there. But you notice when you have it black hot, you still have the pedestrians pop out with some color. So it's not just always black and white. Also, these different vehicles are different colors as well. Change that to white hot. That's the default. It came in with white hot as the default setting. Let's get back. Make that full screen. Okay. So yeah, this is actually the view that I remember seeing on the Flir system. It looks very similar to this, except for it has less detail on the actual pedestrians. So the white hat looks really good, and so yeah, I could see why that would be a good option. Now we're in there's the fusion mode, there's the thermal mode. So yeah, the fusion gives you a little bit more detail, but this is nice and clean, this white hot right here. And the fact that it highlights pedestrians really well with a color and a little box there is excellent. So yeah, the different ones look good. I mean, there's different ones that, different views here that you can have. Unlike the Flir system, this one has different views, different colors, different options. You can switch to visible light. You can switch back and forth to thermal. You can have the fusion between thermal and visible light. But yeah, it's really, really well done system. For the price and everything, it's just unbelievable. Really good. Look how detailed that is. You get to see detail. Instead of just a yellow box, you actually see the heat signatures on the pedestrians. You notice it'll sometimes, every once in a while, it'll kind of like freeze for like a half a second. What it's doing is it's recalibrating. Every once in a while, it'll recalibrate. And while it's doing that, it freezes. This is common with thermal systems. Flir included will do the same thing. Especially when you have, there's a parallax when you have the fusion, it has to kind of adjust for that, because sometimes the thermal won't overlap perfectly with the actual imagery, so it has to adjust that parallax to make sure that it's adjusted properly. AI is able to pick up vehicles very well and pedestrians very well. There's very few cases where it wasn't able to pick up pedestrians and cars, especially even if they're moving fast. Especially cars, they're able to fly by 60 miles per hour right in front of my vehicle, and it picks it up all the way across. It's amazing. Hi, Max.
I'm here.
Brightness 90.
Brightness 90.
Hi, Max.
I'm here.
Brightness 70.
Brightness 70.
So here we are going 60 miles per hour, and this is on the thermal imaging option view with the white hot color scheme basically. And so yeah, you can see the tree line in the distance there. You can see way ahead of you, way more than my eyes can see. The clouds in the sky, everything. It's very well done thermal imaging system. And there's a slight stutter every once in a while because it has to calibrate frequently. But other than that, it is smooth. It's very smooth. Frame rate, I think it's like 25 frames per second, and a movie is usually 24. So that's plenty of frames. It's able to recognize cars, no problem. And if there's any animals or pedestrians on the side of the road or anywhere in view, it will make their color, appear, so it'll stand out from the black and white imagery here. Seems like the fusion view on these like back roads at nighttime seems to work best for clarity and also being able to see contrast of things. So yeah. Sometimes you get some false alarms, but they quickly go away. You can see the trees and stuff. Something on the side of the road that happens to be vertical and also at a different heat signature than everything else might get a false alarm briefly, but it quickly identifies it. The AI system is really good. I would say it's very similar to the Flir system as far as speed and accuracy and everything. There was a deer back there. Let's see if I can catch it on a thermal here. I don't see it. Ran off. Somebody on the side of the road. Right when I passed that car, so I couldn't see him. But the thermal imaging picked it up.